Welcome to the Brain Game Changer, where heartfelt stories, awareness and education can change the game. My name is Melissa, and in each episode I talk with inspiring humans and organisations from across the globe who share significant adversities, triumphs after tragedy and those game-changing moments to provide you with some useful tools and resources to take with you into your everyday life. In this week's episode, I had the humbling and heartfelt opportunity to speak with actor, filmmaker and mental health advocate Berlin Liu. Berlin shares with us the journey of being a carer to his parents, both with a diagnosis of individual neurological disorders, schizophrenia and dementia. He guides us through growing up as a child into adulthood and the experiences he encountered. Berlin discusses losing his father as a teenager and his coping strategies during that time. Acting has provided a creative outlet for Berlin, and we talk about those opportunities, his journey of healing, and his purpose to create more awareness and education about mental health for many people so they do not feel alone. I have so much respect and admiration for Berlin in sharing this journey, an amazing human being. Let's get into the interview. Good morning, Berlin. What an honour it is to have you with us today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Pleasure to be here.
I only met Berlin a little while ago at the Focus on Ability Short Film Festival at the Melbourne screening here at Crown Casino. And Berlin had his short film featured, and it is called She Made Me. Now, that day I watched a lot of short films, but this film still sits with me today. And I was so honoured that I got to meet Berlin and his partner, Alex. I'm just going to get you to share a little bit about that film.
Thank you, Melissa. I was going to say how touched I was seeing how people reacted watching the short film She Made Me. So it's about a young carer in his late teens, and he struggles trying to care for his mother with schizophrenia and also set a good example for his young 8-year-old sister. And it comes from a very personal place where growing up, my own mother developed schizophrenia, and as a young child, I didn't believe it was a mental illness. My mum said that it was a gift that she had from God, and she could hear voices. And as a child, you don't question that, you believe what your parents will tell you. So she was forced into hospital, and it was very traumatic, and I felt it was really wrong how she was treated. And over the years, as I grew up, by the time I was 18, I finally came to terms that actually my mum does need help, and these voices were taking over her life, where she wouldn't eat, sleep, look after herself, and at the point of ending her life rather soon. Tying back to the short film, this different perspective of when I was 18, how I try to care for my mum compared to when I was a young child and actually thinking my mum was special and did not believe that she had any kind of mental illness. So I was the same son, but the way I perceived my mum's voices and schizophrenia was very, very different. If you watch the film She Made Me, you'll see the dynamic of a young boy named Jamie compared to even younger little sister Naomi as an 8-year-old, and how they struggle and try and be there for their mother.
Berlin, thank you so much for sharing. I know we're touching on many layers of personal vulnerability, and I admire the fact that you're sitting here and holding space with me to share your journey. So Naomi is sort of like the 8-year-old you, and Jamie is you as a late teenager. And as you said, you know, when we're young, our parents are our idols, they're our heroes. They are providing the tools and the foundations of what we learn life to be like. I'm just going to ask though, how would you describe just sort of everyday interactions and the relationship with your mum when you were young? As you talked about, you know, you thought she was special and she shared lots of delusional storytelling. But as a young child, you think this is sort of like fantasy and fantasy play almost. How would you describe just you young with your mum? What was sort of going on at the time?
That's a very insightful question. As a child growing up, my mum was the one that was leading. she was the one that was like the breadwinner, or the one that's like taking care of everyone. And my father, he was aging and he had dementia and his mental health was deteriorating. And my mum, despite the schizophrenia, she was very, very capable, just pushing things through and keeping the family together. And my mum would tell me so many stories from books that she read when she was a child in China. And all these stories that she collected and shared, they were almost like parables. And they always had a message about how to be kind or loving and what's the difference between good and bad. And she talked a lot about morals. So she set a very strong moral compass for me. And that did not deviate just because she had schizophrenia. So there was that side where she set a really good example and she worked really hard and was always dedicated in whatever she did and looked after me. But then there was this other side where she would be so immersed in her voices. Later in my life, I found that my mom doesn't actually see things. She hears these voices from different spirits and gods and demons and devils and sometimes 10, 20, 30 different voices at a time. And she doesn't question that to be, this is weird. I'm hearing this voice from this God from somewhere. Is it real or not? There's no insight to question that. She will take it as truth, as you are here right now with me, talking to me, and you exist. So that God that's talking to her, that does exist for her. And she'll tell me these things as a child, and I believe that they were real. And before I had said to you, like, I thought my mom was special and that she had this gift to hear voices. She also made me believe that I was special. Not that I was special that I could hear voices, but to make a difference in the world when I grow up. And sometimes the belief of being special like could be as strange as when I was 6 or 7 years old. God told her that I'm going to become prime minister. And I would go around in grade 1 as a 7-year-old telling my friends that I'm going to be prime minister. And then other kids would just throw balls at me saying that I'm stupid. But I think all kids at some point will have this like complete like faith. They just believe whatever their parents tell them. There's just no doubt. So mum really instilled in me this just like audacious belief to be anything that I could be. And then, later I grew up and then reality sunk in and you really doubt yourself. But that's a couple of things growing up with my mum.
Well, thank you. It's a vulnerable lens. And there's many layers to schizophrenia. It is about delusions and not being able to see, feel, and function just clearly in everyday life. I sort of admire what you've just said, though. It's almost like two sides to her. In the capacity that she was still trying to instill into her son, the morals and values of human life and the journey that we walk with it. And then at the same time, she's also showing you the side of her that's dealing with schizophrenia. So you are also experiencing many different layers and experiences that you're trying to shape as your journey from a child into adulthood. I'm also just going to share that Berlin, he doesn't have any siblings. He was experiencing all this on his own, which as I sit in front of him, I can only just admire. But I'm going to ask the question, so when did you start to experience in your teens that you're just like, hang on, my thought process, my belief system, everything that I'm getting shown now is sort of getting challenged and I'm trying to understand it. When did that sort of start taking shape for you?
Before you mentioned how there were two sides to my mum. One side where she was really teaching me values, and then the other side where she made me believe and there were these fantasies. I haven't really processed that myself until like just now, just sharing with you. And then that makes me think that there's actually another side. Even when I was 7, 8 years old, my mum had lots of paranoia. The schizophrenia and the voices that you hear make you believe so many things. And oftentimes it can be amazing things. It makes you think that you could do anything. And my mum believed that she needed to build churches for God. Then she would be paranoid of people trying to kill us. So as a 7, 8-year-old kid, I was constantly hearing my mum saying that, Berlin, you have to be careful of this person or that person. They might try and kill you. And I believed that too. And I would very rarely ever be able to go to another kid's home. Never had a friend come over to my place. Mum, dad, and myself, we really kept very private. But there was this friend that I made, his name's Rumin, and he invited me over to his place. And he's Chinese and his parents were really good to me. And then his parents met my mum and they got along well. And then all of a sudden, my mum says to me, Berlin, you can't be friends with him because his parents have been bribed by some really bad people. And that boy Ru Min and his parents, they want to harm us. You can't be friends with them. And just blocked off their friendship. And then they gave gifts to my parents. And then my mum actually went over and gave the gift back to them. We're not accepting this because you've been bribed to try and be nice to us. And I'm not going to be dramatic and say heartbreaking, but it did hurt a lot. Like, how could this be true that my friend and his parents have been bribed to be friends with me and wanting to actually have a grand scheme to harm my mum? But because my mum believed her, then I have to accept that it's true. Later on, when more cracks started to appear, I suppose was when I was 13 or 14, when my mum was first admitted into a mental hospital. And that was a shock to me. I came home from high school and mum wasn't at home, just my dad at the couch. And my dad was just completely exhausted. And by that point, his dementia was really serious. He couldn't distinguish time and where he lived and when to eat or go to the bathroom. It was just him at home. And he said the police took her and put her into hospital. There's probably a little bit to go into there, but I'll just skip along and just say that, like, still, even at 14, I felt my mum shouldn't have been in hospital. She did not have schizophrenia. My mum denied it too. And it really took me till 17, 18 to grasp it and be like, okay, maybe the people that's trying to kill us, and maybe that's not true, not real.
It's understandable to have that thought process. This is your mum. It's someone who you love very much. And I feel it's normal behaviour to not want to come to the realization of something so significant, something so strong that's, impacting all of your lives in a major way.
I was in denial for many, many years. Yeah.
It's understandable to be in denial, and you're also trying to digest, mental health. It's many variances, it's many layers, it's many complexities. And as much as like there's textbook definitions and textbook symptoms, it can also present itself so differently in each person, and it goes in ebbs and flows. It's not structured every day. It also probably gets heightened or triggered depending on external influences as well in life.
Yeah, totally.
As much as we're highlighting your mum, you talk about the fact that your dad had dementia and it's very heavy onset and he's declining. And when you were around 15, 16 years old, you lost your father.
When I was 15, my father went missing 3 times. It was always my mum, my dad, myself. We'd be going somewhere and then my dad might go missing and we can't find him and he won't come home because he doesn't remember his address. And we've had times where the police will look for him and after a day or maybe 2 days, they find him and bring him back home. And we had enough science to know that this is probably beyond what I can do as a 15-year-old and what my mum can do. But by the 3rd time my father went missing, mum, dad, myself, we went grocery shopping and then dad was tired and mum said to dad, you can sit here at the bench and wait for us while we quickly get some groceries and come back out. I remember that moment so clearly that it's happened 2 times before when dad's gone missing. Are we really going to try this again and have him wait outside while we go and get some groceries at Coles? I had that thought. I didn't question my mum and I went with her into Coles. And sure enough, when we came out, my dad's gone. My heart's sinking and it's so scared. And of course for my mum too. And we're just searching for my dad. No idea where he is. We report this to the police and a day goes by, the 2nd day goes by, and the 3rd day goes by. No signs of dad. And then on a Friday night, I hear a knock on the door and I feel this like rush of excitement thinking that police is here and they found my dad. And I open the door and I see the police, but I don't see my dad. They say to me, is your mum home? Can we speak to her? And my mum doesn't speak English, so I had to translate. And they said they're very sorry. They found a man of your father's description and this man suffered a fatal head injury. He was run over by a car. And we believe this man is your husband. It's the saddest moment of my life. Just to tell my mum that. She broke down. It was brutal. We actually had to go to the coroner the next morning, Saturday morning, we got there to the morgue and met the coroner, and we had to identify the body just to confirm if it is my dad that died. And it was. And looking at a lifeless body and seeing my dad's face, head like completely crushed, my mom still said to me that my father can be resurrected like Jesus. And I believed it, and I waited, and I was hoping within 3 days, my father, who had been hit by a car and died, can come back to life. And I waited for weeks and months until eventually I accepted that it's not going to happen. And my mom didn't say that because she wanted to make me get over it quicker. She believed it too. So can you imagine how painful it would have been for her to pray and trust in God and thinking that the love of her life can be alive again, and to be disappointed. No one in my school, in high school, knew my father died. Didn't tell the teachers. And I went to school on the Monday. After going to the morgue on Saturday, on Monday I went back to school and pretended everything was just normal. And that's how we dealt with that.
Berlin, thank you for sharing such a vulnerable and significant moment in your life. I can only begin to understand what that was like, and thank you for being in this space and sharing that event that occurred. Turning up to school and just getting on with things, was this also your way of not wanting to admit that it happened, or your family wanted to keep it private? Did it get to a point where you did share what had happened with peers and teachers and were able to get some support at that time?
It took me at least 3 years before I told anyone. So no one knew anything about it. Why? There was the hope that my dad could come back to life. So why would you tell people? 2, just so used to keeping things private. Between mum, dad, and myself, it was just what happens just stays between us. And there was this feeling of like embarrassment. And in many cultures in Asia, particularly in China, like it's about showing face or losing face. Like people look down on you if you act a certain way, or if people know that your father had dementia, or if your mum has some certain mental issues. My thinking was, I'm strong if I don't say anything, if I keep it to myself, and I can overcome it. But actually it was quite weak.
I'm not sure if the word's weak. It's probably survival at the time. You were surviving with the tools and the ability that you could at the time. One thing I would not call you, Berlin, is weak. And I think you were just in survival mode of functioning through things that teenagers shouldn't have to experience.
If there was more awareness about it, about mental health and other young carers or parents struggling with mental health challenges, I would like to think that, if more awareness around this in high school, then maybe my young self when I was 15, 16 might have shared a little bit, and it might have helped me heal a little bit sooner instead of taking many years to do so. And I feel like I'm not alone. I feel that there's many people who have struggled and kept it to themselves, and people who have absolutely suffered more than I have. And just hope that we can all make a difference in some way.
I'm just going to share with the listeners that while Berlin was going through all these different adversities and challenges, throughout his teenage life, he did finish year 12. He then went on to study accountancy at Melbourne University. Kudos to you, a credit to you, that while all this was going on in your everyday life, in your home, in a space that's supposed to be safe and a sanctuary, you are achieving these milestones. However, one thing that we've discussed when I met you at the festival, you have a passion for film, a passion to create, a passion to share stories through filmmaking and through acting. You ended up going to Northern America and Canada for a couple of years. How did that opportunity present itself? Because, you've got a pretty impressive resume so far. You've been on Supernatural, iZombie, Supergirl. You've also been in some award-winning films. How did that opportunity present itself to you?
When I finished high school, going to university, and I did accounting and finance at Melbourne University, I only barely scraped in to that course. Going to Melbourne University was significant for my mother. all Chinese parents, they like a good university.
Yeah. I'm hearing this. I am hearing
Yes.
this.
So got in by the slimmest of margins, but accounting and finance was not my first preference. I had the typical medicine, dentistry, maybe commerce, law, double degree up there in my preferences, and commerce, accounting, finance was a bit lower down my list. Fast forward, I passed everything and tried to get through it all and did the 3 years bachelor degree, and very fortunate to have then gotten into a professional accounting firm, KPMG, and I did 4 years full time there. I struggled a bit, but overall I did well. And from my mum's perspective, she was proud of me.
Well, in
Yeah,
her eyes, you'd made it. You had ticked all the boxes in her world.
No, the most important box is to have kids. So that's something that I'm making her wait. And accounting, KPMG, I was a senior consultant and I really liked the people, but I wasn't fulfilled. Nothing to do with working in corporate. I had a yearning for something very creative, and acting was something I just loved as a kid. And going to amateur theatre towards the latter stages of my corporate career. Tried student projects, indie films, got into an Aussie TV show, Tomorrow When the War Began, as just a day player, a small role. And just imagine, whoa, maybe I can do this. Maybe what if I can like play a more significant role and actually have a career as an actor? And I asked to take a career break, a sabbatical, 1 year off. And in that year off, which was in 2016, I did everything I could in terms of going to different schools to study acting, trying different projects. And later, in around October, November, I went off to Vancouver and I never looked back.
So, how did the opportunity come about getting to Canada and pursuing more acting?
I applied for a work and holiday visa and went over there at the end of 2016. At first, I was thinking of going there for 2 years and spend most of that time by myself and come back when I can to take care of mum. But she felt very sad and didn't want me to leave her. And I brought her over to Vancouver, and from 2 years became 3 years. And for the most part of 3 years, we ended up living together. And during that time, from 2016 to 2019, I really got immersed in the TV film industry in Vancouver and made some great friends who were filmmakers or actors. And I didn't expect that not only would I focus on acting, I would grow as a filmmaker and start writing my own stories.
Well, I'm going to say again, as I've mentioned some of the mini-series and roles that you've been in, but I'm also going to highlight again that you played the lead role in the real-life portrayal of Shi Ming in the award-winning film The World is Bright. I mean, congratulations. As we stated earlier, that film won quite a few awards. And in a different film in 2021, you won Best Australian Actor at the AFIN International Film Festival. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That must have been quite a moment as well, like experiencing these acting opportunities where you're able to immerse yourself into something that brings you joy and you're able to express your creative outlet. You know, we've highlighted everything that you've gone through throughout your life, and now it almost feels like that Berlin is able to be who Berlin wants to be and what makes him happy.
Acting is one way for me to express. It's certainly something I love very, very much, but it doesn't encapsulate who I am. Like, I am just being here right now, and I feel that my greater purpose could possibly be in something related to mental health. I did not choose to have parents with mental challenges such as my father with dementia, my mum with schizophrenia, and to be in this world with my Chinese background and only child and what I've been through. I'm very open to see where life will take me and see where I can make the most difference in. Acting is something that I really enjoy. And I have thought sometimes, what does acting really do for anyone, aside from the personal kind of satisfaction and fun that you get? But I have a mentor, Neville Christie, and he said to me, actors can make us feel, make us think, reflect, make us learn, and even possibly change our behavior. And great actors can do that. And I'm nowhere near that, but I hope to work towards that. And if I can embrace my vulnerabilities and come from a truthful place, especially reflecting on, my parents and the things that I've been through and my personal fears and insecurities, and be true to whatever character I'm playing, then that could possibly make some kind of difference. But I'm also very open to share like this here. This is super, super meaningful to me to share with you, Melissa, or to give back and just if I could, mentor a younger person or anyone that I could make some kind of difference to, just in a private way, without needing to be seen by people. And the accolades or awards that you describe, that's if it happens. But what I am is really just kind of just being true to myself at this very moment.
Berlin, I think everything that you've just said in the person that you want to be, you're already more there than you realize. So we've just got one or two questions to go. And thank you. This has been phenomenal, everything that you've shared in this interview. It is so humbling to sit opposite you as you share with such vulnerability and such rawness. So we're sitting here, it's the year 2022. You're creating a podcast as well, and I'm really excited to hear about when that launches, and I'll be certainly plugging it out there and letting everyone know about it. And I love the purpose and the mission that you're hoping to achieve, getting the word out, especially about mental health. And I've also met your lovely partner, Alex, who is a beautiful soul. But what are we going to see from Berlin now going forward?
That's a great question. I'm not going to avoid the question about my podcast show. I've done a few interviews. Perhaps if 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 I'm lucky enough, I might be able to interview you in the future.
I'd be honoured. It's a yes. It's already a yes.
That's a huge win for me then. And let's see what happens with that. I would like to share it to the world, just like how you're sharing. And I want to learn from you. What I'm doing is just in its infancy. I'm collecting people's stories, people that I've met, like how I met you at a film festival. I'm going back to like my childhood friends that I've met, and just people who have stories to share that touches upon mental health and their perspectives. And hopefully other people, the audience, can listen and connect with that and feel that they're not alone. I haven't even decided what the title is. So it's very early days. Where I'm going ahead from this year going to next year, one main focus is to grow as an actor. I recently booked a role in a thriller / kind of horror movie, and it's filming very soon in Melbourne. It's about two young men following a serial killer, and they do a documentary about the serial killer, and the serial killer gives these filmmakers hints to follow him. He wants to be followed, and then kind of everyone gets killed. And I'm playing the serial killer.
Oh, wow. What a role.
Yeah, so I've never done anything like this before, but I'm actually quite excited about it, to be bad and have fun and be a psychopath, I suppose.
I love the fact that you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and I guess even as actors, we just assume that every role's doable and easy, but I guess as well you've got the human element. You're totally stepping into an area unknown and sort of learning and evolving as an actor. I think that's amazing.
It's very unpredictable and fun when you get to play different characters as an actor. And I feel that from what you're hearing as a teenager, as a child, where I was so private and never shared, there was so much suppression is emotionally. And I suppose as an actor, you're allowed to express. And that for me is kind of cathartic, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, to make up for the lost time as a child.
Berlin, amazing things ahead for you. Creating a podcast, creating awareness, putting your story out there, putting the stories out there of others. As humans, we can connect when we hear somebody else sharing their words, and we can resonate. And I believe it'll just do so well and be incredibly successful because you are touching people's hearts and sharing the stories of others. And I think it's amazing that you do that. And I'm excited for you for also your acting adventures going forward. I think we are only seeing a snippet of the bigger things that are coming for you, and deserved. And I love the fact also that what you've gone through is a continued healing journey. No matter the day, the year, as we keep going forward, you are dealing with your journey and the different layers, and stepping into those spaces of being uncomfortable, being vulnerable, those war wounds, as I do talking marks. And I feel you are only going to create so much for so many other people. You may not be the Prime Minister that your mum has spoken about, but I think you're going to be a speaker, you're going to be an advocate, you're going to be a voice, you're going to be so much for other people. I'm going to try and not get emotional now, but you're one of the most inspiring people that I've met in a long time.
I really do not know how I can express to you how I feel. I just want to highlight that it was only last year in May when you suffered the brain hemorrhage and you could have died, right? And coming from that in just over a year, I find you so inspiring.
Oh, well, we've got a mutual appreciation society going on here. But I sort of feel that you and I are a little bit similar in the sense of we're on a road of healing and recovery, but we're also wanting to do it to create awareness. And I think that's where you and I are quite similar. We're presenting this for all the different reasons and all the different whys that we're doing it. But I think we have a very similar mission and a very similar purpose. I'm going to finish on the last question. I ask this question to everybody. I ask this question to everyone that I interview. The name of this podcast is called The Brain Game Changer, where heartfelt stories, awareness and education can change the game. As much as you have shared so many valuable tools here today, what is one piece of that golden nugget information or advice that you'd like our listeners to take away with them today?
I often feel disappointed in myself. And it comes with this feeling of, oh, I'm so lost. And whatever I may come across or I sound like I've been through so much as a carer and as an actor, as a filmmaker, etc., I'm often lost. And I can't share advice to anyone, but I can share how I'm dealing with it. I feel that if I tell myself, well, I'm lost, and that's okay. However I'm feeling, if I'm feeling down, then it's coming from somewhere, this feeling. And try and almost see yourself like a little child, because I try to grow up so quickly. As a teenager, I wanted to be an adult and be strong and keep it all to myself and not share. But now as an adult, I feel if I try and look at myself as a child and be like, it's okay, however low you're feeling, and really truly just accept it. Whatever, if it's so depressing or hurtful, regret, shame, pain, truly accept that feeling, and it's coming from somewhere, and it's telling you something that if the emotion is genuine, if it's a genuine negative emotion, I don't think we should ignore it and say, I'm going to put this away, I'm going to do something else, I need to feel better. I don't think we need to cover it up and immediately turn that negative feeling, for me, like let's say if I'm lost, and straight away turn that into a positive, because I find that if I really like kind of be humble and say, yeah, I actually don't have any clue what I'm doing, and feel that, then look within. And not always, but sometimes you talk about that nugget of information. Well, that nugget information is, I don't feel is necessarily from anyone out there. It's actually within you. And give yourself enough time, enough patience, and most importantly, enough love. If you love yourself, be kind to your inner child, you will find something inside you that will guide you. And guide you to a place where you feel in your heart that you feel full, it's purposeful, and you feel that it's right. So trust yourself, and no matter how negative and how down you are, trust that given enough time, it will pass and better times are to come for you.
Berlin, that is so beautifully said. Thank you so much. And thank you for today. I feel like I'm a better person after this interview.
It's truly an honor and a blessing to be here with you. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you found the show really valuable. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, our guests, and the topics we discuss, please head over to our Instagram page at The Brain Game Changer, and make sure to subscribe and tick those 5 stars so you never miss an episode. In the meantime, continue embracing those game-changing moments. Have a great week, and see you again soon. Take care.